Thursday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We have a bitter cold forecast to break down as we head into the weekend. If you walked outside already today, you definitely know what I'm talking about. So we'll do a little bit of a recap, talk about what's ahead as we head towards the beginning of your weekend, and then the question on everyone's mind: will it snow this weekend? We'll break down the latest from the models that we are seeing, and I'll kind of give you my general thinking behind what our prediction is as of right now. So don't go getting your hopes up just yet, but I will go ahead and tell you that the chances and the odds are slightly increasing. So maybe holding out a little bit of hope and optimism on that front. So first things first, let's talk about your monthly rainfall, because we did get some rainfall yesterday. Not too much at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. In fact, only 5/100ths of an inch. But it did put our total closer and closer to the 1 inch mark, and we still have a ways to go before we get to that average of 4 inches of rain for January, or where January normally stands on average. And your record back in 1925 doesn't look like we're getting anywhere close to around 13 inches of rain. But over the last 24 hours, really, obviously I went out for 48-hour rainfall totals because we did see that rain move in a little bit more than 24 hours. But roughly about the past 30 hours, we did see the highest rainfall totals mainly over to the west here in Central Georgia. Some totals in areas like northern Taylor County, right on here in the county line of Monroe County and Crawford County, pretty close to Culloden and Musella. You can see 1.7 inches of rain recorded. Then up here just to the northeast of Forsyth, 1 inch of rain. Up in Putnam and Hancock County, some isolated patches of some green indicating totals up to 1 inch. And a slim spot of it right here just on the edge of Treutlen County and the southern edge of Emmanuel County, 1.4 inches of rain. But for the most part, most of Central Georgia simply just saw a couple tenths of an inch of rain, or maybe even just about a trace of rain, where we can see some of these totals not even enough for a tenth of an inch of rain. But that rain will not be taken into account with the drought monitor update we did get as of this morning. And it does confirm what we have been seeing as of the last couple of months. It has been a very dry stretch. So your portions of a severe drought across Central Georgia were in our westernmost counties. Now it extends for ultimately about the southern 2/3 of Central Georgia, where we do have another patch of a severe drought just to the northeast of us as you make your way up to I-20 and the Augusta corridor. So Milledgeville, maybe portions of Forsyth, Eatonton, portions of Jones County, and over here in Washington, Hancock counties. This does line up with the big rainfall event that we did see as of about 2 weeks ago. Those areas up to the north in Central Georgia saw a whole lot more rain than others, and I do believe that's why they didn't see their drought conditions worsen. But Macon, Warner Robins, Perry, Dublin, down to Eastman, Unadilla, Cordele, and over to the west in Macon County, Taylor County. All of you are now under severe drought criteria, which still means that we need some rain pretty desperately. But we do have the rainfall totals that we did get as of yesterday that we will add into next week's drought monitor. And then, of course, as we head into the weekend, we do actually have a rain chance as we go into Saturday. But then Sunday, is it going to be a rain chance, or is it going to be something of the frozen nature? But we'll see if maybe multiple rain events could help put a dent in some of these drought conditions that we have had settle in once again as we head into the midway portion of January. So super cold to end the week. There is no way around that. Bundle up. Hopefully you are utilizing that heavy duty puffer coat that Santa Claus brought you a couple weeks ago, because really since Christmas we haven't had much occasion to need any of the heavy winter layering whatsoever. We do have weekend rain chances, but the big headline is possible winter weather. Obviously we have a big question mark surrounding that, so I'll try to zoom through everything else until we can get there. But we are going to go chronologically because we still have a Thursday afternoon, a whole day on Friday, and a whole day on Saturday to get through before we move into Sunday morning when that winter weather could be possible. So here's a look around the quad. Beautiful blue skies. It looks like a great image outside. However, it's once again a story of looks good, does not necessarily feel too good. Take a look down here at the Georgia National Fairgrounds where you see the flags. They are whipping. They are definitely moving at a very good speed, and some of those occasional gusts have been blowing even faster than what you do currently see on this image as of this morning. But you can see a little bit of right to left with these flags, but overall it's mainly a northwest, maybe even a westerly breeze that is present down there in western Houston County. your temperatures are still mighty frigid. Somewhere in the low 30s, the mid 30s, and the upper 30s. No one above the 40-degree mark, but it does look like we have our fair share of temperatures at 39 degrees down to the south and the southeast. Dublin at 39, Vidalia, McRae, and all the way down into Rochelle in Wilcox County. Well, we are not too different from the rest of the United States. I think the warmest numbers we can spot as of right now, 57 degrees, and that's down in Orlando. We have a 55 over in Laredo, but for the most part, this cold air mass is very widespread across the eastern United States. I don't see any shades of maybe even some yellow until you get down to the southern tip of Florida. So it does look like temperatures maybe in Miami might be hovering around 60, but it is frigid, not only in the southeast, but to the north of us, to the west of us, all across the country. Here's a look at your dew point temperatures, and they have gotten a downtick as well. So not only is cooler air ushered in, significantly drier air is also ushered in. So dew point temperatures will be found in the low to the mid, maybe even the upper teens, or right around the 20-degree mark, maybe in Wrightsville and over to Swainsboro. But little to no humidity is the story, and some very gusty winds are still continuing to be the story. These will continue to be widespread throughout the rest of this afternoon. After the passage of our frontal boundary, we had some windy conditions move in as of this morning, and as we've gotten more and more daylight, the winds have only gotten gustier. Gusts up to 23, 26, even a 29 mile per hour mark down in Warner Robins. I think we have the potential for some gusts even slightly above 30 miles per hour throughout the rest of today. But this breeze is going to be a big factor in terms of what it feels like, because your numbers are still scattered about the 30s. So your feels like temperatures are kind of the dividing battleground between the 20s and the low 30s as of right now. 21 degrees, still the lowest feels like temperature that we see up in Monticello. We are approaching the territory. We're only about 2 or 3 hours off the window of when these numbers should be at their warmest, and they still look like your fair share of morning low feels like temperatures. So very, very cold, and those winds are going to continue to make the numbers feel colder as long as they do stay kind of below that 50-degree mark. That's kind of the dividing line for when feels like temperatures are not going to start to be influenced by the wind whatsoever anymore. So let's circle back to yesterday. 31 for a morning low temperature. It did feel better than what Monday and Tuesday mornings did feel like. And then 54 for a high temperature. So below average, that's the most important thing. 81 was your record yesterday. 16 was the record low. Won't spend too much time on that. And we did record those 5/100ths of an inch of rain. Not as much as we were hoping for at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So we are now about an inch below where we should be at this point in the month of January, and this point throughout the month or throughout the calendar year of 2026. So we definitely could use our fair share of some rainmakers, but 54 yesterday, that was important because it was now the second day so far in the month of January that we have had a below average high temperature. And I imagine that yesterday was the first day of probably a stretch, I would imagine maybe close to 7 days, maybe even getting into 8 days, where we will see some below average high temperatures until we get into the back half of the work week next week. So no way around it. Today is just going to be blistering cold. Feels like temperatures in the 30s in light of that northwesterly breeze and really gusty conditions, I rather should say. So 45 degrees, already a cold high temperature, already 14 degrees below average, and that number is going to feel roughly about 10 degrees cooler throughout this afternoon. So here's a look at hour by hour temperatures, where once again, this graphic going a little bit below our general thinking of what the high temperature will be. But our meteogram has us peaking around 42 to 43. Then as we head into the evenings, we're already back into the upper 30s. But let's take it a step farther. You may remember this graphic from the summertime. It did say heat index today. Well, I've switched it over to your wind chill values, and you can see that your peak wind chills 36 to maybe 35 degrees. Now, if your temperatures get a little bit warmer than that, you could have some feels like numbers into the upper 30s today. Overall, that is not a very warm environment whatsoever, and we're very quick to drop those feels like numbers back into the 20s as soon as 7 p.m., and we'll keep them nestled in the mid to the upper 20s as we go throughout the nighttime hours. And as you walk out the door tomorrow, I do anticipate the actual temperatures to drop down well below what the numbers did this morning, but the breeze will finally subside. Satellite and radar is crystal clear, not a cloud in the sky, and that is the same case scenario for the entire state of Georgia, unless we're having some issues with that satellite and radar, which I don't think is necessarily the case, because throughout today, throughout tomorrow, there's not going to be many weather points to really write home about. It is just going to be crystal clear. It's just a matter of how low those temperatures go and how cold it's going to feel, specifically this afternoon, this evening, and into tomorrow morning. But Friday afternoon, we could start to see maybe a bit of improvement in terms of your temperatures and your feels like numbers before changes arrive early in the morning is now what this graphic is showing. So the graph model picking up on our next rainmaker arriving sometime around 3 a.m. on Saturday. So it does look like if you have plans to venture out early on your Saturday morning, you could run into a bit of a dreary environment. Now this frontal boundary that brings the rain does kind of lose its mojo, loses its steam as it moves through central Georgia. This is around 6 a.m. Still your fair share of some light to some moderate showers that are fairly widespread. And that line of rain does continue to fizzle out as we go all the way to 9 a.m. And the difference between this model run and the one we have been seeing all morning long is as we go into Saturday afternoon, skies clear out and it's looking like a very nice forecast for any Saturday afternoon plans. However, that frontal boundary, as of the last model run, did have some clouds and some showers hanging out in our far southeastern counties. Not too sure if that's going to be likely so much anymore, but we do have the possibility for maybe the farther south and southeast that you live that you could hold on to that rain a little bit longer than areas up to the north and the northwest that see it first during those overnight hours. So the rest of Saturday afternoon looking good for outdoor plans, and I think it's actually going to feel pretty nice. We'll go ahead and flash forward as far out as future view goes, and this is going to be 4 a.m. on Sunday. This is getting right on the cusp of the window that we could be expecting something in the way of maybe even some wintry precipitation. Doesn't look like there's anything besides cloud cover right now according to future view. So once future view can get the whole morning within view on Sunday, that is going to be a textbook telltale for when we can finally start fine-tuning your forecast in terms of anything in the way of possible snow, in the way of a possible wintry mix, or if it's simply just going to be rain, or it's not even going to be any rain whatsoever. So we just need this to go out a couple more hours into the future, and then we will get a much better fine-tuned forecast. But I'll tell you where things do stand as of right now, according to our longer range models, which have been giving us a prediction for the last couple of days. Here's a look at your winds. Like I mentioned, they will continue to have an uptick throughout today and even some flashes of that red shade. So those are going to be your gusts of 30 to maybe even 35 miles per hour in some localized spots. But very thankfully that breeze goes down and is virtually non-existent as we go into Friday morning. A very good thing. Your temperatures are going to drop down lower than what they were as of this morning, and that's mainly because we do have the absence of winds. However, those numbers are going to feel true to their actual values. It's not much improvement. I would expect just as blistering cold of a morning for your Friday morning as what you did have as of this morning. Now we go into Friday afternoon where the breeze gets a bit of an uptick and then gusty winds once again build back into the forecast. Friday night, overnight into early on Saturday morning before that first rainmaker does make its entrance through, and then we still hold on to some breezy conditions on the backside of that frontal boundary as we go into Saturday afternoon. So here's a look at the feels like temperatures. When you combine the winds, you combine the temperatures, this is what it's going to feel like at times throughout the rest of today and into the beginning of your weekend. Feels like numbers that are really struggling to get above freezing temperature for the remainder of today. Somewhere scattered about the mid to the upper 30s, I think, is the highest that it feels like temperatures will go. And if you have plans this evening, it's already going to feel like the upper 20s very quickly after the sun does set. And we'll continue to see those numbers somewhere into the mid to the upper 20s, maybe even flashing up a couple low 30s on occasion during the overnight hours. But this is 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'm not necessarily believing these exact numbers because my forecasted temperature is going to be around 20 degrees tomorrow morning. I don't think the breeze is going to really impact what those temperatures feel like, but the graph model is very, very reluctant to go below that 30-degree mark. If it goes down to 26 like it's doing right now, then that gives you a lot of confidence that, okay, we are going to see some sub-freezing temperatures, but typically the farther and farther that you get below 30 degrees, the graph model is pretty reluctant to go down as far as some of the other models are going to show. But then as we go into Friday afternoon, probably the first opportunity that we could see maybe a bit of a pleasant feel, temperatures that feel like the lower half of the 50s. It will seem like a win compared to what we do have in store this afternoon. However, we are definitely searching for some much warmer weather as we go across the course of this weekend. But the good news is Saturday morning, not going to be blistering cold, but these feels like temperatures in the low 40s. They're going to be paired up with some rain. So obviously, that is not going to be the most conducive forecast. It's going to feel a whole lot like yesterday morning did feel with the widespread showers and some pretty chilly temperatures. And then we go into the afternoon, maybe even borderline seeing some feels like numbers close to the 60-degree mark as we go into Saturday afternoon. We'll continue to see how high those numbers do climb, but remember, green is going to mean good, and the darker green is going to indicate some lower 50s, but as you transition into more of a light green, and you could even get down into a yellow if you were to go down to Florida this weekend, that would be feels like temperatures pretty close to the 70-degree mark. But we'll have some temperatures that are going to be slightly below average, but overall going to be a fairly nice environment as you do venture out the door on Saturday afternoon. It is just going to be paired up with some breezy conditions. And then the feels like numbers are already going back down into the mid-20s as you go overnight into early morning on Sunday. This is the feels like temperature. These aren't the actual temperatures right here. So this is factoring in the breezy conditions that will build back into the forecast Saturday night, overnight into early Sunday morning. I imagine the actual temperatures are going to be right there along the line of freezing temperature, maybe just slightly below freezing temperature. So over the next 3 days, blistering cold, and then finally we get into a somewhat more pleasant environment, but you are going to need the rain jacket, specifically earlier in the morning on Saturday. Once again, just like we were talking about yesterday, we have more confidence in the rain chances for Saturday morning as opposed to any other time throughout the day. But with the models, we're saying as of this morning that we were going to hold on to a few rain showers into the afternoon hours. That's why I elected to not really highlight a time of the day that it was going to rain on Saturday. But 40%, honestly, that might get a bit of an uptick. It's more so looking about like a 60 to maybe even a 70% chance of rain in terms of the coverage, but still mainly of the light and the steady shower variety. I wouldn't doubt that a couple pockets of heavy showers could be present like we did see as of yesterday morning as well. But the big difference between Thursday and Friday and going into Saturday is the fact that Saturday we don't dip below that 32-degree mark whatsoever. So that's why we're very confident in forecasting rain throughout your Saturday morning. But the frontal boundary that will be bringing that rain is going to reinforce our cooler and drier air. Some of that cold Arctic air is going to try to usher in as we go into the end of the weekend. So take a look at your afternoon highs first and foremost, where we will see a high temperature of 46 on Sunday after we try to increase back close to average on Saturday afternoon with a high of 58 degrees. That number very likely going to fluctuate depending on how quickly the colder air mass makes its way in behind that frontal boundary. If we do start to see the rain chances get out of here earlier in the day on Saturday, then I do imagine that the colder air would filter in a little bit quicker. But 46 for a high temperature as it currently stands on Sunday. I kind of have a bit of an inclination that I think this number is going to drop just a little bit, but 46 degrees is still 14 degrees above that magic number of 32. Keep that in mind in the back of your head because that's what temperatures are forecast to warm up to, at least somewhere above the 40-degree mark throughout the afternoon on Sunday. Then as we go into Monday, high temperature of 50. We won't really worry about that. Monday's not really of much concern when it comes to your forecast. Morning low temperatures down to 20 degrees tomorrow morning. Yes, it is just going to be downright cold. Wouldn't even doubt if we had an upper teen or two that decides to pop up on the map. But overall, the actual numbers tomorrow are going to be very similar to how the feels like temperatures were as of this morning. The main difference is you're not going to have that extra bite in the forecast from the winds. It was just really making it unbearable to be outside this morning. I took a step outside for a couple breaks during the show this morning, and it was just absolutely hurting, honestly. You stood outside for a couple of minutes and you were like, yeah, nope, I'm going to go back inside in the AC, but expect a very bitterly cold start to Friday morning once again before the afternoon highs crawl just above that 50-degree mark. 37 for a morning low on Saturday. Like I mentioned, we are not going to dip below freezing temperature between Friday and into Saturday night, hence why Saturday has rain chances, liquid precipitation. But we do dip slightly below freezing temperature as we go into Sunday. Like I mentioned, the frontal boundary bringing those rain chances will usher in kind of reinforcing push of that cold Arctic air, and 29 is forecasted to be your morning low temperature value on Sunday. However, remember that high temperature in the afternoon, 46 degrees. It's only looking like a slim window during the really late overnight hours into the early morning hours that we will have those below freezing temperatures. So we're going to need the moisture in terms of some rain chances on Sunday to line up perfectly with that window, and a lot of other features that of course have to come into play for a southern snow system. Last year we had the perfect storm of all those ingredients. Don't go expecting that to happen as we go into the end of the weekend. And then as we go into Monday, we will be nice and dry, but it is worth noting that Monday morning also going to feel very similar to what tomorrow morning is going to feel like. And Monday morning is going to be an eventful day, at least here in central Georgia, all across the state of Georgia, as it is Martin Luther King Day, and there are going to be a lot of celebrations for the life of Dr. King on Monday. So here's a look at the long-range models. This is just indicating precipitation as a whole. This is not depicting the type of precipitation whatsoever. So the GFS model over the last 24 hours, it has remained consistent, indicating that there will be widespread precipitation across the state of Georgia, going up into portions of North Georgia, all the way down along the Gulf Coast. The European model not indicating as much confidence here in central Georgia, but there is a little bit of an overlap. And this is going to be lining up in that window of early morning on Sunday when those temperatures would be just slightly below freezing. Then as we go into the afternoon, I think we will see a pretty quick warm up above that freezing temperature mark, but it does look like those rain chances move off over to the east. Then it's smooth sailing as we kick off the beginning of next week, besides having to combat those bitterly cold temperatures once again. But by the time we roll into Wednesday next week, I think we finally kick off another warming trend. So as we roll into next Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday, we could see some more rain chances, but overall, I see a warming trend with your temperatures. Talking about highs finally getting back into the mid 60s, which does seem like a big win after this extended stretch of some cold weather. But this is very likely what you do want to see. So here's the latest update from the GFS model, which has been the one model that has been predicting widespread frozen precipitation over the last 24 hours. Now the GFS, you'll also hear it referred to as the American model. So if you do see some posts somewhere saying the American model, that's the same exact model that I am showing you. But as of the latest run, it continues to nail down the forecast that we will not only see just frozen precipitation, but maybe even a couple of hours where there could be consistent snow showers. And actually, this model run does have accumulations, maybe up to around 2 to 3 inches of snow. Not to be a Debbie Downer, not to burst some bubbles. However, the GFS model, I did see a great post about it because it is very true. It is not necessarily the most reliable model when we're looking at these long-range forecasts. I saw someone compare it, the GFS to the Browns, that yes, most years, rather often than not, the Browns are not the best teams, but occasionally it can get it right. Just like occasionally the Browns do make the playoffs, but more likely than not, the GFS model is going to be over-exaggerating things when it comes to what's going to happen. Now as we go into the late morning hours, it's just continuing to hint at widespread frozen precipitation. That's if we keep the numbers below freezing, which I don't have a lot of confidence in right now, even past 10 a.m. So we'll continue to see what the numbers are. That's going to be something that we're monitoring closely as we get closer and closer. But I do anticipate if we do see anything in the way of frozen precipitation of this GFS model, it is going to transition into a wintry mix pretty quickly as the temperatures warm up. And I don't expect really much in the way of accumulation. But if we are to go this GFS route, like I mentioned, 2 to 3 inches of snow accumulation could be what's in store, but I'm not really inclined to believe that. Let's go to a more realistic scenario where the European model now, I did see this model referenced in that same post I was saying. Now remember, the GFS or the Browns, the European model is going to be more so like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Consistent year in and year out, always right there around 500 or above 500. It might change now that Mike Tomlin has stepped down, but nonetheless, the European model is a lot more consistent. So we typically do take what the European model is predicting out ahead of time a little bit more, and we have more confidence in as opposed to the GFS. So you can see it's kind of a half and half scenario. We could have a brief window of some frozen precipitation, but it doesn't look very long lasting whatsoever. So if we were to go this route, you would very likely see some flurries, but nothing that's going to stick to the ground, maybe even more of just a wintry mix. I'm more inclined to believe this scenario, not just because of that comparison I just made with the Euro being the Steelers and the GFS being the Browns, but just in my history of forecasting, I have seen the European model be correct more times as opposed to the GFS model. But we have one more that we can now show you. That wasn't a model that we could show you as of yesterday, and this one is definitely an outlier. If I had to pick one of each of these three models that I'm showing you that I am the least confident in, it is this one right here, because yes, it does show that widespread frozen precipitation up to the north, and these areas might be just a little bit cooler that could line up, but it's hinting that around 6 p.m. So this is afternoon time frame when those temperatures are going to be above freezing for a good amount of time. Now, I mentioned 46 may get a bit of a downtick, but I still am pretty confident in us being above the 40-degree mark into the afternoon. That is not a conducive environment whatsoever for frozen precipitation. We might try to see something of the frozen nature try to fall, but it's definitely not going to stick whatsoever if we do have temperatures above the 40-degree mark. And it's hinting at all of this frozen precipitation sticking around all the way until midnight going into Monday. I'm not really buying that scenario whatsoever, but it is something we will continue to monitor the trends with. But the moral of the story is models are not lining up. They are not agreeing with each other. So kind of our rules of thumb with winter weather forecasting, 7 to 10 days out, is typically our first heads up. So yes, we've been monitoring this for quite some time. We get a general idea. We definitely need more details. With the back and forth that the models have been doing over the past couple of days, with maybe showing it one day, showing nothing the next day, it didn't feel like anything that we were going to go ahead and try to message to you and maybe get your hopes up for it. But right now we have seen better agreement now that we've moved into this 4 to 6 day window. So we are right here in between these two categories, the 1 to 3 days out and the 4 to 6 days out. But we're still in that 4 to 6 days out category. We are looking for model consistency. What did I just tell you? There is no consistency whatsoever amongst the models right now. We can get a better idea of the precipitation type. So yes, we're honing in on the fact that it could be of the frozen nature, the wintry mixed nature, but overall that 4 to 6 day window, what we're going to be telling you, what are the odds looking like? And over the last 24 hours, the odds are looking slightly better, but our confidence still in something in the way of winter precipitation still remain relatively low. However, we have seen a slight increase over the last 24 hours. But now that we're getting right on the cusp of 1 to 3 days out, higher resolution models are going to begin to come in. Our graph model, the HRRR model, we just saw the NAM model come in. So once all of those models start to come in, and if they're saying the same thing, we are more confident to tell you that, okay, a lot of models are agreeing with each other. Frozen precipitation looks more and more likely. So we will fine-tune our forecast and we can start to pick apart the location, the specific timing. I think we have a really good timing if this is to occur, and it's really going to be the late night hours and the early morning hours, Sunday into maybe just right there around sunrise time. And I don't expect temperatures to stay below freezing for too long, but we are going to get a better idea as we go across the course of today, across the course of tomorrow, and even getting into Saturday. It will remain important that you need to stay updated. If you are keeping your fingers crossed for hoping for some snow, continue to stay updated. But I did make a post this morning because obviously I can tell you all of these things. I can tell you the odds are increasing. What you want to know is it going to snow? Yes or no? You want a clear-cut answer. If I had to lean on the side of one right now, it is going to be no, even though models are saying that, yes, winter precipitation does look pretty likely. There's not a whole lot of agreement with the specific timing, with the specific ingredients. And if I had to say if anything is going to occur in the way of winter precipitation, it's going to be a few flurries, maybe more of a wintry mix, but it's not going to stick, not going to really have too many impacts. That is my prediction as of right now, Thursday morning. My prediction could very likely change as we go a couple hours into the future, hence why you need to stay updated if I'm going to continue to stay updated with my personal prediction. But that's where things do currently stand as of right now. We will be updating you around the clock. David Guerrero is going to be with you for midday. Ben Jones is coming in this evening, and we will be updating you all throughout Friday, all throughout your Saturday, giving you a better idea of what is going to be in store for that Sunday morning window. So, like I told you, I'm leaning more on the side of no. Hence why you only see a rain shower icon on your 7-day forecast. Yes, there is a slim chance of putting some snow on there, but we've got to be pretty confident to throw a snow icon on your 7-day forecast. We very likely could a little bit later today if model data continues to come into better agreement. But right now, the lack of agreement makes us think that it's going to be more so of just a general rain event. We might even throw a bit of a mix, maybe a snowflake and a rain icon on there. But that's what's in store right now as we head into the end of the weekend. Getting those higher resolution models within view over the next couple of hours is going to be crucial to nailing down that forecast. But we do have some rain showers, mainly for the morning hours on Saturday, so make sure that you bring back out the rain gear that you maybe grabbed on your way out the door as of yesterday, and just going to be downright cold throughout your Thursday, throughout your Friday. But these rainmakers passing through, or even wintry weather makers through this weekend, are going to reinforce that cooler air until finally next Wednesday we begin to see signs of things warming up. So thank you for tuning in here for your extended forecast. We'll be back once again at 11 a.m. tomorrow with the latest update.